was like a fresh, original idea. And even though when I watched the film, I was a bit meh about the ending, the film as a whole was different and it was exciting.
Yeah.
But
what made me laugh about that was people actually complaining they never saw the monster.
which is,
But you don't need to.
if you want a monster movie, go watch a monster movie. And the monster, you see the monster. The Babadook's in the film. It might just not be like, hello there, I'm a monster.
But that film absolutely terrified me.
But no, yeah, and speaking of monsters, I felt was it Insidious was ruined the moment they showed the monster. Like you had the jump scare moment, beautiful, but then they kept showing it, and I was like, you've lost me now. Any kind of suspense or tension's gone. But I think for me, regardless of genre, whether it's horror or not, the films that really kind of I love more than anything are the ones the film ends and I have to take a moment. Like I'm left having to process what I just watched, which is like one of the reasons why I loved Human Centipede 2. But also, when I remember I watched Paranormal Activity 3, and it was randomly the first Paranormal Activity film I watched. I didn't watch them in order, but I watched 3, and the film ended, and I was like, oh, okay, that was intense. But I also had like the same reaction when Joker ended, and Godzilla -1 I watched recently. It's the films that when they end, I wanna like think about it and process it. It's not just like, oh, okay, that was a film, I go home now. Like, but I think probably one of my fave films that's come out more recently, and when I say more recently, like within the last kind of 10 years, probably X.
Yes.
I was blown away by X. And I find that talking about a film after I've watched it will make or break it for me, because either if it goes in the negative way, I'll end up being like, oh, but that plot point and this thing didn't make sense, and well, they could have done this instead. Whereas with X, I literally got home, talked to my other half, and I just could not stop raving about it. And every time I talk about every scene,
I'm so glad I showed that to you.
I am so happy you showed it to me, because every scene I spoke about, I just fell in love with the film more, and I cannot find like a fault with it. It was such a great homage to slashers films. It was a perfect period piece. Like they really showed like the 70s well, and the themes about like intimacy and body positivity and everything within it was also so beautifully done.
It was, yeah, definitely.
And it somehow took a film about like about a sex industry and made it not overtly sexualizing.
Exactly.
And I loved it. And even now raving about it, you can hear just how much I enjoyed the film. And then,
I know, I remember I was there.
and then lead on to you and I going and seeing both Pearl and Maxine in the cinema, which both also completely different to X. Each film was so unique in its own way, and I love that about that.
What was amazing was that wasn't even supposed to be a trilogy. What was amazing was when they were doing X, I think it was meant to be a joke, but the director Ty West and what's her name, Mia Goth, they got together and they said, can you imagine we did a prequel about the old lady, Pearl and all that? And Ty West was actually thinking about it, and he just woke up in the middle of the night and started writing. And then he said to Mia Goth, how about we do it? And she's like, what? She said, yeah. He said, why don't we do it while we're... And they did. They filmed it back to back.
Oh, no.
And so once X was completed, they carried on with Pearl because they was in New Zealand when they filmed it. It was all filmed in New Zealand. And then they done it, and then it happened. But what was so funny is they made Pearl even before the film even got greenlit. And then they did it, and then it was like, because X done so well, they were like, make Pearl, do it. And they did. So they did it straight away. And Pearl came out the same year as X in America. Because X came out in February, March time, and Pearl came out in America in September.
Oh, wow.
So, so they got it out, and then we didn't get Maxine until 2 years later. But I was happy because X and Pearl actually came out near my birthday, but unfortunately Maxine didn't, and I was a bit gutted about it. I was like, damn, why is he not doing the routine? But it was fine, because we saw it anyway. But then what happened was, because they done Pearl, Ty West was like, do you know what, this needs one more. And they said, what if we went back and we saw what happened to Maxine after the farm event? And they said, yeah, we can conclude it there. And recently they asked, do you reckon there could be a fourth movie? And he was like, it's a possibility, but now we said, no, do you know what, because I've spent 2 years unexpectedly making this unexpected trilogy, I now just want to put it to bed and do something different. But I tell you what, they are definitely one of Ty West's best movies. I mean, I've seen most of his work, but the X trilogy, as they're called, is definitely his best films.
Yeah,
he's definitely proved himself as a filmmaker,
and it makes me so happy that he knew when to stop. Like, I feel like it's going to come up in conversation quite a bit, but I get very on the fence about people making sequels to things. I've already said it once when you mentioned The Wild Robot, and I was like, do we need a sequel? And it's like, I love the fact that each of these films, they weren't trying to achieve what the other film achieved. They were each a story within themselves.
Yeah.
And then he made it, and he was like, there's my story, and it's done.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, because I feel like a lot of people, not just within the horror genre, but in general, they're like, oh, this film did really well. We have to try and make it again. We have to try and make more money. And people liked it the first time, so they'll like it again, right? And people go, no, we've seen this, and now you've made it but worse.
Yeah. I think luckily though, because it's A24, they don't really care. They are such a chilled studio, and they don't care what they release. I mean, I've watched just recently I watched A Different Man by A24, and again, it's another bizarre film that they've released, and it was another good one. Yeah. Because that's what I love about A24. They just literally pick and choose and go, yeah, we'll take it. They just don't care. Like, and they got another one coming out soon, which I'm going to go see with my missus, called Heretic, which stars Hugh Grant.
Oh, I've seen
and I cannot wait to see it, because Hugh Grant in a horror film is really going to intrigue me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what also intrigued me. He's a very fussy actor, so whatever that was in the script, he must have said, oh yeah, because this is a man that doesn't say yes to every script he's been given.
Yeah.
So whatever was put on that script, he must have thought, okay, either that or he had a really big paycheck.
Yeah, enough money on the table.
Yeah, but to be fair, I saw the trailer and he looks very menacing in it, and I thought, okay, I'm quite intrigued. So I can't wait to see what he's going to bring. But also speaking of that, is about the genre. Like, I love now, recently, what many horror films have done. Like, they've taken this massive psychological turn.
Yeah.
Like, I think from, I'd say 2016, 2015, they've been doing it. Like, maybe up from the Babadook onwards. Like, obviously, the movies that I've loved nearly every year have become a horror. I mean, Hereditary was one of them. Midsummer was one of them. Yep. Doctor Sleep was one of them. X and Pearl was one of them. Maxine is definitely one of my favourites this year. Yeah. But also I enjoyed over the decades, I'm just trying to think on the top of my, there was Us, there was Get Out. I mean, Get Out really surprised me. I never went into any expectations of that. Yeah. But everybody was talking about it, and I said to my missus, we better go check it out. I went in the cinema, I came out and I went so happy I saw that movie. And whatever Jordan Peele does next, I was in. And then Us come out, I went straight into it. And Nope come out, and I went straight.
Nope was fantastic.
And I saw that in the IMAX.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I had to, because when it said because Jordan Peele was like, you have to go see this at the IMAX.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if Jordan Peele says it, I've got to go.
Yeah.
And it was like with Beau Was Afraid. Like, Beau Was Afraid was by Ari Aster again, who did Midsummer and all that. And again, he was like, you need to see this on a really big screen. And me and my missus went to we didn't go to the IMAX, but we went to a huge cinema, and it was worth it, because it was just wow. Like, you know, and again, that was a movie I had to process at the end.
Yeah.
But like those sort of movies I kind of put together as my psychological favourites.
Yeah.
Because I think the horror genre's done really well. Like, I mean, there are some films that have still come out and they've still gone the cheesy route. I mean, Tara, I saw early this year. One of the worst horror movies I've seen in a long time. Absolutely disgusting. Do not watch that film.
I remember you text me as soon as you saw it. You're like, don't bother. Don't go and watch it. And it's like, if you tell me that, then I take that pretty hard, because it's like, okay, even Reese hasn't enjoyed it, and Reese can find the silver lining in any dark cloud, and it's like, if you've come out and gone, that's an awful film, I'm like, okay, yeah, it must have been really bad.
It was one of the worst I've seen. It's so bad. Like, it's like a film that you'd see in the early 2000s, but it didn't do its job.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't know what the hell it was meant to be. Is it a comedy? Is it horror? And there was stuff that was coming out, and I said to my missus, I was like, was I supposed to laugh at that? Was that supposed to be a joke? And I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, was that meant to be a joke? They're not executing these jokes very well. Yeah. And the death scenes are absolutely poor. Like, I think there was only like one death scene I sort of liked, but the whole movie was trash. And I was just shocked. Like, I come out and I said, and this is the thing, I don't like movies now where, for example, you have a horror film or a thriller and there's like someone has a curse or something's gone on, and this character, this protagonist we're meant to follow, has now got this situation.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh my God, what's happening? That first half is brilliant because you know they've been cursed or something.
Yeah.
And then there's that second half of, oh yeah, let me go and visit that person from the past and get the backstory. And oh yeah, years ago my ancestors released this curse and this happened. Now it's on you. How do we stop it? Then there's the half of, and I can't stand films where they search all the time. And that's what I didn't like about Smile. That it's that cliche of that half of the looking in the background stuff. But that's why I was so happy with Smile 2, because you don't get any of that. All you get is this star who gets the curse of the smile. And what I love about it is, instead of, oh, let me check what's going on, what they do instead, not spoiling, it's more of, is this real or is this not real? And it even messes with your head.
Yeah.
It's like you are literally seeing what she can see, and then and you kind of sit there like, it's like you are literally inside her head.
But that's great. I feel like a lot of the times, like, yeah, when you said you get the exposition, it's like, oh, let me go find the old mystic woman and she'll tell me everything. And it's like, no. And it's like, in reality, you're not actually necessarily going to do that, are you? You're going to freak out. You're going to be like,
and then they go to visit a dark prison or a haunted house, and they knock on the door, and then they're like, you have the curse, now it's your turn. And then how do we stop it? Oh, you won't be able to stop it. And then the protagonist dies anyway.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, that was for nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just a waste.
I think a good example of being cursed and the whole trying to figure it out is actually It Follows.
Oh, yes.
So that is a really good example of not over exponentializing it, but it's like, no, you're cursed, you've got to try and figure out what's going on because you're on such a crunching time limit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not like, oh my God, there's mysterious things happening. It's like, no, right from the get-go, something's trying to kill you.
Yeah, and what I love is that he already explained it to her in the beginning.
Right at the beginning.
And now she's stuck with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved. And it was a case of, okay, now what's she going to do next? Is she going to get killed? What's going to happen? That's what was the guessing. It was a guessing game. What is going to happen next? And then when this so-called thing was following and you saw it, you're just like, is that it? Oh my God, it's coming. And I mean, my missus is terrified of that film. She does the one scene she hates is the old lady when she's in the school and she's walking towards the window, then she's in the school and no one else can see it. My scene that I hated was the bit in the kitchen when it's dark, she's downstairs on her own, she hears a noise in the kitchen, it's all in slow motion, and you see this nude woman and she's like disfigured and she's walking towards her. Oh my God, honestly, when I first saw that scene, I was literally almost weeing myself.
What? I think my favourite thing probably about that film is more the fact that it's real. So, and what I mean by that is sometimes where it's like when the protagonist is being like terrorized by a spiritual being or whatever, nobody else knows what's going on. And that can work. That can be like the whole isolation of nobody believes me. But the fact is, it's like, even though she can only see it, it's like, this thing is real. And I love that scene on the beach where the hair just, and everybody around finally clicks. It's like, oh, she's not crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I loved that moment.
Yeah, the swimming pool scene as well was very good. Like, because they can't see it, but she can.
And they're all just like throwing stuff.
Yeah, they're just throwing, and then one of the characters gets hurt, and it's like, oh my God, you know. So it's such a peril film. But you'll be happy to know, right? There is going to be a sequel coming. They follow, and apparently the teaser from the lead actress herself is this is going to be much more darker and messed up.
Okay.
And it's going to be set 10 years after the events of the first film.
Okay. Could go either way, because like dark and messed up is amazing and I will always love it. But
it works for Smile too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are many examples of it being done well, but I feel like sometimes it's a cop-out.
Yeah,
oh no, our story's not so good, let's throw a bit more gore on it.
True.
And don't get me wrong, if you're going in with a low bar just to watch gore, brilliant.
Yeah.
Fine, enjoy it. Like, there is plenty of gory movies that you watch for the gore. You've got like Saw, the Saw franchise.
Oh yeah, like absolutely.
So it makes sense. But if they're like, oh well, it's gonna like subvert like your expectations and all this and that, and it's just like gore, and you're a bit like, okay, but it could work. But we've seen like with the Halloween stuff and everything where it's like, oh, but it's down the line. It's like, that doesn't make it better.
Exactly. All right, we need to cut this conversation now because it's nearly 11 o'clock. The ads will be playing. So let me play another track and then we will get straight back into our conversation. So the next track I'm playing is another great favourite of Halloween. This is the main title sequence from Trick or Treat.